Wonderful. So I'm here today with Sarah Fowler, Deputy Mayor of Tahsis, who is going to talk to us about a grant that they have got, $82,000 from Municipal Affairs through the SERUP, which is the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program, and what that looks like for Tahsis. So hi, Sarah, how are you doing?
I'm really well. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today, Michelle. I'm really excited about this. I know that the SERUP funds are meant for like opening businesses that have sort of been shuttered, or just trying to help people who've been have negative financial experiences from the pandemic. And when I was talking to your staff, it was like, oh, well, how will this project benefit the community? And I came up with 3 words: more accessible wilderness. So that's, you know, in a nutshell, what I want for my community. And also, you know, I know that this has been something that was specifically requested by some of like our OCP and our other sort of like public engagement, because we do have a sort of older demographic. A lot of people retired from the mill and stayed. So I just really want to be sensitive to their needs. You know, myself, I was in tree planting when I first came here, and I've broken my leg twice. So I'm kind of on that. Once was a household injury. I slipped while I was scrubbing the floor. It wasn't out there in the wilderness, but it was definitely something that made me more aware of sort of disabled issues or accessibility. You know, being able to. I believe in the project like things that it was looking for was something to the effect of like people being able to access public buildings. And I know that we had a ramp on our museum, but it decayed because it didn't have a roof on it. So that was part of the bench strategy, was so that they would have some like covered areas. I believe in the application it says that we get an insane amount of rain here every year. So I could probably deliver it in a milliliter amount, but it's more than anyone else. And so that's the rainforest and the West Coast for you. And I know that a lot of people who, you know, there's such a movement right now for active transport and for walking because it's safe. You know, it's a safe thing that you can do in your community, and it's a way to have like I've even known people who do walking meetings now, and I feel like that's it really has potential to help the overall health of the community, not only from like an accessibility point of view, but also like the sort of other layers of just having quality of life. So I know that we're really excited to have this project sort of be a galvanizing thing, some kind of investment. Oftentimes small communities like mine don't have the resources to make sort of surface improvements. And, you know, we really have to focus on the meat and potatoes of things. And I'm really excited by the placemaking of this. You know, you put a bench there, you know, now it's like a thing to do. Now it's a place to go. Now it's a, you know, a way to enjoy something where if you were like having some pains, then you could have, you know, a little break, and making walking more easy for everyone to be involved in. Yeah. I think that's my main push for this project. And, you know, there's a lot of other things that I've highlighted here in the job creation and economic restart. Tahsis economy depends on enhancing the attractiveness of the community. So that's like another way where by having more picnic benches and shelters and sort of like just, you know, we all don't always carry umbrellas because it's windy too. So then they'll just implode, right? And there'll be reverse umbrellas. Definitely the idea of like having sort of that placemaking infrastructure where we can, or I mean, we don't have a bus, and I do think of the shelters as sort of like being bus shelters in a way, but I want to have a bus one day.
Yes, yes, of course.
Yeah.
So your community isn't a lot different than a lot of the other smaller communities that we're seeing on the North Island. And, you know, you are having your community, people stay in your community longer. You know, those resource sector towns where there was big mills and stuff, the average age was, you know, around around middle-aged and families. And now that those resources are gone, we're now looking at, ages that are starting to creep up a little bit, especially as housing becomes so unaffordable, where people can't leave where they are now and go off to the bigger centers, because Tahsis, of course, is still relatively affordable in the grand scheme of things. So, good for you for taking a look at what your community needs and get that happening. And I know that you're doing a lot of work around aging in place in Tahsis, right?
It's really important here because for a while there, my 6-year-old was the youngest person in town. And now there's been some other people who went down the family route. And I remember another time too, before I was elected, when I was still working in forestry or somewhat transitioning into parenting from forestry, there was this incident where Western was talking about logging the McKelvey and then other areas around town, and this high school student came up and said, "You can't log the forest behind my house. How will we sell our house?" Right? So there was like definitely a concern from, a teenager, 18 maybe, that the wilderness is part of the appeal. And yeah, you're definitely right. This is a cheap opportunity. Tahsis has been so good for my family because we were able to buy a home, right? And we maybe have 2 seasonal incomes at best. So, and maybe 1 seasonal income at worst. So there's a lot. There's a lot to be said about having sort of a place for young people. I mean, don't feel as young as I used to, but I feel like there's definitely a way to have like a stepping stone. And I never thought I would own a house, and it's not paid for yet, obviously, but there's the idea that having a house in Tahsis is, I'm from Ontario, and the real estate prices there are just like way over my head. And, you go further afield, and that's something that, I really love the wilderness. I always, when I first came out here, I would always make the joke about how the East has culture and the West has nature, but we each have both things. There's culture here and there's nature there. And there's also sort of the idea of just like finding ways to enjoy it, right? Because it's not everyone has the abilities to, rappel into cracks and crevices and caves and karst and all that. And I know that I'm the slowest of the hiking trail, like I'm the one who's like the most behind and maybe needs, a cane or a walker or some kind of like support sometimes. And I want Tahsis to be a place where people don't have to leave when they, aren't able to drive the road anymore, or, like I want there to be sort of supports. I know that when my grandfather, he lived in London, he worked for Air Canada, and I remember when he wasn't able to drive anymore, but he lived on a bus route, and it was close to a grocery store. So his needs were met. And that's what I really see us working towards. I know that we do have a lot of businesses who rely on tourism. I remember when I was waitressing, I talked to this person who had come here every year for 30 years from France. So they had seen this huge change in our community from once a mill town to now a non-mill town. And the nature is still good. The fly fishing, I hear it's still good, like I don't get out there that much. I'm kind of a take pictures kind of person. I one of these days I'm going to get a fishing license, and one of these days I'm going to get a fish, and but not yet. And I know that that's one of the main draws that people have to come here for visiting. And as an elected official here in Tahsis, I feel like the needs of the people who live here year round have to be put above the people who come to visit, because, whether they have ability to get to their doctor's appointments, or, whether they have, like the ability to fix some of because the housing stock here is old, right? Like the newest building we have in town is the Coast Guard building that was just built. And it's really nice to have a brand new building that's like up to code, but that means all the rest aren't.
Right.
And I remember when we had the meeting before you were elected too, Cheryl, my fellow counselor, she was asking me about, how many people do you think have new windows? And I was like, too, you know. And not a lot of people have efficient windows. Not a lot of people have. I know that we own this house for 5 years, and we were just able to put a roof on it. And you know, we're working people who are trying to, like, you know, move things forward. And if I was retired, maybe that wouldn't be the case. I wouldn't be able to do some of the work myself. I wouldn't be able to have, you know, like a way to fix the things that need fixing.
Right.
So there's a lot of work to do, and I'm really excited about the prospect of just some kind of like both, you know, both locals and tourists need to sit down and take a rest and, you know, take a selfie or have a luncheon at the, you know, picnic table, shelter, whatever, get out of the rain. And the idea of having, you know, we have a high quality natural environment here. And so that's something that, you know, I feel like people want, and I feel like people know that that's where, like, natural assets build the other assets. Like, it's only by having forests that we can cut them down and then make benches, right?
Right. And you know, I truly believe that most people who choose to live on the north end of the island, and especially in rural and remote areas such as Tahsis, are doing so because they are making a choice. They are making a choice of where they wish to live, work, and play. So making sure that some of that infrastructure that's there, and I don't believe that most people have delusions of grandeur where in Tahsis they are going to get a big public bus system, but a community bus is something that can be worked on. And I don't believe that they expect to have a 100-bed hospital, but a primary care unit is something that is expected. So I think that we have the ability to move forward with those pieces. So I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing in Tahsis, and say way to go with all of your walking systems and your benches. I'm so happy that you guys got that grant, and I am very much looking forward to getting over there as soon as everybody has had their vaccine, which I'm hoping is relatively soon.
It's really soon. Yeah, I've already been able to register for my vaccine, so it's pretty exciting that the day that the vaccines are coming to town is also my 40th birthday. So it's going to be like a big celebration for me, and I hope for the rest of our community, because that's going to mean that a lot of people who are aging in place are able to be more safe. So I'm really excited about that. And thank you so much for this time. I know that you're busy lady, and I'm really glad that you're doing all the work for us too, and knowing what it's like, because you're right, people do choose this life. It's a little bit wilder, a little bit rougher, you know, and it requires some planning. I mean, I have a friend who moved from Toronto to a small town, and she's like, oh wow, it's different now. And I'm like, yeah, you're gonna get a black belt in bulk buying, you know, because that's part of sort of the stalking yourself and making yourself ready for an adventure, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Like I said, I look forward to getting over to Tahsis and to speak to you soon.
Sounds great. I love to host you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.